Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the studio. I know I haven't been on in a while, but I wanted to go ahead and give an update on where I am in terms of progress. I'm back into writing now, and I'm juggling screenwriting. Sometimes it can be free verse, whatever my thoughts are, I would jot those down. But right now, mainly is screenwriting, trying to get back into that, which I haven't done in years, really, especially something that I would focus on. And so, yeah, it's definitely an adventure. And then at the same time, I'm still working on the fine art photography. And I have a piece now that's in Spain. So that exhibition is going to be until December 18th. I believe it started on December 5th. So there's that going on, and I'm still trying to get my photography out there. But in the last few days, I've been more so focused on screenwriting. And on this particular story I'm working on is very, it's a bit exhausting because of the subject. It's based around a society issue, and the way I'm writing it is gonna cause, controversy, debate, and so I'm trying to include humor, like humorous moments in it so far, to lighten the atmosphere or the mood. But ultimately, it's very heavy, and like a couple of days ago, and even after tonight's session, like my head, I have a headache, so it's really heavy. But my idea is to submit it to different managers and see if I can get picked up. I do have some writing that's already completely finished. There's some short scripts, there's some feature lengths. The one that I'm working on right now, I believe I have enough story to make a feature length. And it's funny because I don't have an outline, I don't have a beat sheet. I just wrote the synopsis a couple of hours ago, and that's after I started writing. And so it's been discovering what the story is, who the characters are, how the plot's going to revolve around the main character, and then naming the characters. I'm still working through that. But after writing the synopsis, I realized that this is going to be a massive story. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to write it out, but my thinking or my motto for this is going to be one page at a time and just go from there. So one of the reasons I stopped writing as much as I did before is I put so much pressure on myself to try to write an Oscar-worthy sort of film instead of just starting with the basics, right? And then trying to see if I can get something to come out of that. So I'm putting less pressure on myself this time around because I feel like if I do get a manager, I'm going to have to write a lot more during the year. And obviously, I don't know how many other scripts will be produced, but I'm going to have to write on a regular basis, and ideally not in the same genre. I can jump from comedy to drama, suspense, action, thriller, fantasy, like everything really, and then see where see where we want to focus on. But I don't want to get boxed into one thing. Excuse me, because I feel like that would become boring, monotonous, and even more stressful. So I think it's more fun to try different genres. But yeah, it's gonna be one page at a time, and a lot of times I get a headache, or I have a headache at the end of my writing sessions because there's so much information that's coming to mind. Because more times than not, I don't have an outline or a beat sheet, like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 type of thing. More times than not, I have a climax or like a turning point in the film, but I don't know the beginning and the ending. I just know this particular point in the film, and then I write everything else around that point. So where I started with this script, and I'm only on page 11, page 12 right now, I don't know if I'm going to move it around because I started in the middle of the film, and then I'm doing like a flashback to how we got there. And like I said, once I got to page 12 this evening, I'm thinking about removing the first couple of pages and putting them towards the middle of the film where they actually are, and just starting naturally at the beginning and playing it out. Because if I show the audience where we end up after the flashback, it's going to ruin the surprise. But I'm gonna keep writing and see if I end up shuffling the scenes around, because there's over a 10-year gap that I'm doing a flashback on. It's a lot of setup, it's a lot of characters. There's a lot of debate, like not really literal on a stage debating really, but just people have different viewpoints about the same thing. And it's like in society, we all want to get to the same goal. Like we all have the same goal, but we have different ways of getting there. And that's where this film, that's the foundation of the film, is we have the same goal, but we have different ways of getting there. And our ways and our thinking is so different on how to get there that causes debates and arguments and things like that. So, but I wrote the turning point of it. I don't know if I would call it a climax, but I wrote that part out. And then I started having all these rabbit holes, of how I got to the climax or how I got to the turning point. And then that's when I started writing, more of my notes, because at the end of every writing session, I write like a paragraph out, just some notes to let myself know where to pick up from the next day. This is where you start, or this is where you continue from with the dialogue or the action scene, whatever. So I wrote out my paragraph, and then in writing out the paragraph, I had a question, and then another question, and another question, and then the next thing you know, I wrote like a page and a half of notes, and then it dawned on me, okay, this is the whole story. Like, this is the entire film. So now I know beginning, middle, ending, and I know that the story is gonna take a lot of time. It's gonna take a lot of time for me to write it, which goes back to my model of just not focusing on the entire thing, the entire project, but taking one page at a time. And if I feel like I'm stressing, just work on one page. Like anytime I have a session, at least one page. And if I don't have anything else, or if I can't think of anything else, then give it a couple of hours, wait until the next day. But at least whenever I have a writing session, just to get one page down, right? So far with my writing sessions, I can get at least 3 pages down, maybe 4 or 5, but a solid 3 pages before I start running into certain issues. But now that I've written the synopsis out, it's a matter of fleshing out all the characters that I'm going to need. What's their backstory? How did they get to where they are? I'm going to have to either find features in Final Draft 13 that have character breakdowns. It focus more on character development. Or I can write them down in my sketchbook, which I used to do, years ago. And I still have my sketchbook that I would just write out character traits, personality, who's connected to who. And then if I run into a rabbit hole, follow that and see where it goes. That gets added to all of my notes. And so there's just so many things that I have to consider when writing. And then you have to put all the thoughts and everything together so that when people sit down in the theater and they watch the film, it's not fractured, and going all over the place. Everything has to tie back to the foundation of the story, the foundation of the characters. And obviously there's the humor part of it that I still want to integrate into the film. I want that to be natural. So that's what I'm focused on at this point, not just throw jokes out. But there are characters who are naturally youthful and see the world from that sort of perspective. And so that's how they communicate during the film, at least so far. So right now, I'm not really comfortable yet. I think when I get to page 30, 35, my brain will start settling down. And then another milestone is like page 50, and then page 70. And then once I get to page 90, that would be considered a feature length, at least 90 pages. So I feel like I can get to the high 70s with what I have, but I'm going to have to take my time and really, like I said, flesh out the characters, right? And then at the same time, research who would be a manager or someone who would be a potentially a good manager for me, because I don't like marketing. I'm terrible at networking. I don't like being in front of the camera. I don't like presenting my work. But when I'm reading my work, I'm like, okay, this is good, right? And then when I'm sharing my work with other people, the work is good. So now if I have a manager who can network and they know who to network to and they have all the contacts, the connections in the industry, they can do that part for me, right? And obviously I would need their help anyway, because I don't know besides Angel Studios, that's the only one that comes to mind. But who else would be really good in terms of a film studio that I would feel comfortable with selling the script to? But yeah, I have to continue to write. Obviously, get my inquiry letter together. I already have a list of my short and feature length scripts on my website, so that part's not an issue. I just have to see what I have printed out already and what I need to print out. I did look at my profile on Stage 32, and I should be able to show you guys that now before I go. Let's see, I'm on ACES. Okay. Yeah, so I updated my setup here. So now I have 3 monitors. I'm try my best to correctly incorporate the 3rd monitor, but anyway. So yeah. This is my Stage 32 profile. So you'll see my profile link up here. It's just Eric C. Jackson is the handle, and it's at stage32.com. So there's that. And I have some photos in there, but I'm probably just going to keep 1 or 2 maybe. And then I have my log lines are already here, which I thought yesterday I was going to end up having to update this, but I don't. I mean, I put this stuff here, I think 2-3 years ago. But again, I really haven't paid attention to my profile here. And then I have a list of all my poetry books, which I have to add Prison of Despair to this. And I included my semester at Azusa Pacific University, which was all the way back in 2011. So yeah, it's been a while since I really focused on writing. And that's why I posted on the community tab, like, can I still write? Not just poetry or free verse, but can I still write a script? So I do have to say, like, after tonight's session, I feel much more confident that I can still write. It's just a matter of not feeling overwhelmed with the projects and understanding that I really do need a manager. Because before, when I was doing this, I was like, trying to learn how to do everything on my own. But the marketing and the network side of it, I just feel like I would be better to do my best to get a manager for this part of it. But it's there. I am interacting with the community. I do have 112 people in my network so far. So I've got more requests up here. Sometimes I'll get requests from graphic designers, storyboard artists, that type of thing, right? This person is a music composer, musician, producer. So yeah, I have to go through all those. Now I will say that I don't work with everybody. And to be honest, I'm very picky about who I work with because, to be honest, like, my quality standards are pretty high. because everything is based off of my brand. My logo, I put a lot of time in creating my logo, and then figuring out how I want to market my fine art photography. And now I would like the writing to be more incorporated into the brand. And I went on Canva and worked out how exactly I want to do that. So after I don't know how, like several months of trial and error and not liking where it was, I finally put something simple together, and I'll show it for you guys here, that I like for, let me go back to Samsung for the writing. So yeah, it looks very simple. It is. But this is just posting on social media. And that's the style that I want to have. So now I can flip back and forth between the fine art photography, because it's branded the same way, and then the writing will be intertwined in there. So I'm really happy about that. And like this one right here is one of the free verse, just one of the thoughts that I had, that says, what if we talk to each other instead of about each other? What if we looked in a person instead of at a person? How much better would society be? And so over the past year or so, especially, I used a lot of free verse to get me back into rhythm of writing. And then it got to a point where it's like I realized I need to start writing scripts again. So there's that. All right. My head's feeling, better now. I did the same thing a few nights ago. I was planning on posting something on Instagram about my writing session, and I typed out the whole paragraphs of my thoughts, and then I decided, you know what? I'm going to write a little bit more before I tell you guys that I'm, seriously writing again. Because at that point, I think it was Wednesday night, I still wasn't comfortable with where I was with the story. No outline, no synopsis, no anything. But like I said, after tonight's session, I know exactly what I'm supposed to write. At least the direction of it. And so now I'm comfortable with that. I'm probably going to be gone, like not gone, but not posting for an extended amount of time, because I just want to focus on getting into the writing session, not procrastinating, and looking at where the story's going. And like I said before, it's very involving. It's just a lot of information coming at me at one time, because I think what people don't understand about my writing process in particular is I feel like I'm not writing the story. I feel like I'm watching the story unfold. Like it feels like I'm in a theater and I'm watching the film along with everybody else. And I don't know what's happening, right? But I'm in the theater, and then as I start writing, I find that mentally, emotionally, I go into the film like I'm in the film, and that I have to write down everything that I see. Like, okay, this person is saying this person is doing this, and just writing everything down. It's almost like, what do you call that person in the courtroom and they have to type out everything that people say? That's basically what I do. but I'm writing a screenplay. So in a lot of stuff I write with the stories, I'm just writing what I see. And I find myself mentally, I'm in this other world and I'm following these characters along and I'm just typing everything out. And then oftentimes I can't type fast enough with all the information coming at me. So that gets very draining because it feels like I'm always trying to catch up with what's going on. So I end up taking 10, 15-minute breaks, coming back, writing out what I see. And I don't know if that's for all writers, but that's definitely for me. And like the first scene I was telling you guys about, I just kept seeing this scene played in my mind over and over again. I kept seeing it. And finally, after I don't know how many weeks, I just decided, you know what? I'm gonna write it down. And I wrote it out. And then it just snowballed like a domino effect. And it just turned into something else. And what I was going to share with you guys on Wednesday is I compared it to you are in a really dark room, like a dark building, like pitch black. And the only thing that you have is a small little flashlight. And you're walking down the stairs like you're in a stairwell. And your little light can only illuminate the next step in front of you. And that's it. So that's me with how I started writing this story. Is I only saw the next step in front of me. I saw one scene, wrote it out, and then I took another step, and then I saw something else, and then you take another step. But you can't see the stairwell, right? You can't see the entire thing. But that's how it's been the past few days. It's like going up and down stairs in this building, and it's pitch black, and I only have this little light to illuminate the next step, ahead of me. And the light is not bright enough to illuminate, or light the other steps beyond that. It's just the next one. And I will say that the synopsis, I could see the stairway like more clearly. Like I could see 3 steps ahead of me, 5 steps ahead of me. But I kept asking all these questions. And so that's what I wrote out in my notes. I kept writing all these questions. What if this happens? And then what if this leads to this? This leads to this. And then, like I said, the next thing I knew, I had a page and a half of, oh, this is the story. And so I go back to the beginning of my notes. I read it through. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a lot. This is going to be a lot. So I don't know what's going to happen with my schedule. But I do want to put 2 to 3 hours aside. I don't know if it's every day or maybe every other day to see how far I can get with characters, story, all of that. And now my headache is coming back. But yeah, I feel like I take my writing too seriously. So I have to find ways to relax and loosen up while still getting my work done. Yeah. I do. Because my one of my favorite directors is Christopher Nolan. Um, and his films are usually very intense and serious tone and all of that. Um, which is great, but it's also like it's this weight that just sits on you. Um, so I don't know if I'm gonna write something lighter in tone in the middle of this process. I don't know, but I do realize at this point that I need something else to just take the emotional toll off of me, because I end up taking on, or I guess feeling the weight of the characters that I'm writing, like taking on how they're feeling, and then writing that out in a way that the audience can feel that as well. Um, which leads to, if this film does get produced, it's gonna like I was questioning too, like, should I write it? Because I mean, it's already, the environment in society is already heavy with political issues and things like that. Um, do I need to add to that? Right. But I feel like writing this in a film will be helpful because people get to sit there for 2 hours or an hour and a half, whatever, and just not say anything. They're just taking in what they see, right? For like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then that gives you time to think and go over your thoughts, instead of having this, you see something on social media and you have this knee-jerk reaction. You get on X or you get on Instagram or Facebook and you start, typing out whatever, because you're having that immediate within the first 5 seconds, this is what I think, reaction. And with film, you do have time to sit there for over an hour and just take everything in, right? And then what usually happens to us all is that, okay, when the film ends, as we're walking out, we're having conversations with friends, family. We're having conversations with strangers. Like, okay, I thought this and I thought that. And then we're talking about, what happened. And you had time to digest it all, right? And so I feel like film is a really good avenue to talk about this, because I feel like we have to talk about this at this point. But I think we have to have constructive conversations opposed to the yelling, screaming, and name calling. And I think where the film ends, I think because of where the film ends, it's not going to be that bad, right? But the beginning through Act 1 through Act 2, it's going to be bad. Act 3, there's going to be the resolution. Things will be resolved. And where we end up, I think, will force people to look back over Act 1 and Act 2 and say, okay, now I understand the beginning to the middle part better. So by the end of Act 3, or at the end of the film, I think people will calm down and really start thinking about it. And then we can have conversations, like sit down, have conversations face to face, and not simply talk about the person on the other side of the fence, right? And like I said before, and I'll go ahead and wrap this up. But it's like we all have the same goal, but how do we get there? And if your path to that goal is not the same as my path to that goal, that's when you start having, the conflict. And so what I'm doing in this film, or my goal is to completely lean into that conflict. Like just lean into it, right? And what happens when we do that? What happens when we do that? So obviously it's not good. And there are some surprising things that happen, that's starting to happen where I ended on page 12. I don't know where it's going, but oh my goodness. It's gonna be a mess. I don't want to get like too complicated or too complex, but it's gonna be a problem. Not like a problem with writing the story. I can definitely write it out, but for one, I don't want the story to seem convoluted. And two, I don't want to get people too like conspiracy theory or anything like that. Like I don't want to go into that. So I don't know if I'm going to keep this rabbit hole trail or I'm just going to play it straight. I don't know. I don't know. And from the scene, because I had the scene in mind from a different story that I had that I was going to write. And that scene ended up in the story tonight that I'm writing now. And it works. So where's this going to go? I'm not sure. I don't know. And I don't think I can say anything more about the project. I have no idea if it's going to get produced or not, if anyone's going to is going to pick it up as far as a film studio. But I will definitely add it to my inquiries in terms of I'm working on the project now. I have enough story at this point to pitch it to a potential manager, and they can read over what I have so far. And hopefully, like I said, once I get to like page 30, I'll feel more comfortable with it and with where it is. And then I can include what I'm writing now with some of the scripts I already have completed, and I'll go ahead and submit those out and see if I get a bite. If not, then I will take it through stage 32, and there are some other organizations who help screenwriters get their work out there. There are script coverages that if you get positive reviews on your script coverage, which is somebody critiquing it, reviewing it, then your work gets forwarded to producers, directors, etc. So there's that. Either way, I but I do feel like I said, is that a manager is going to help me with the networking, marketing, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's all I have. That's all I've got. In terms of new content for my channels, I definitely have photos and everything set aside, and things that I want to go into. So, like I said, I've made some tweaks this week to my setup, and I'll go into that in the next episode that I share. And I think everything for 2025 is going to be better, but my approach is going to be a lot, I don't want to say slower, but it's going to be more impactful, right? I'm going to focus more on the quality of it instead of the quantity of it. So yeah, some weeks I just don't have anything front of mind. But I did put aside some stuff that I could use for content on a regular basis. I did put some of that stuff aside. And yeah, but for me, in terms of career, my main goal going into next year is to have my writing like at the top of the list, and then everything else is going to start falling below that. Especially for the past 5 years or so, if not longer, my writing has been near the bottom. And so now everything's flipping. And so my photography is in a place now where everything's automated with the order process, even with keeping up with the inventory. So yeah, I'm in a good place now where I don't have to micromanage that, and it's leaving me more time to write. So in terms of other writing projects, I will look over my current portfolio, see what I can share, and look at ways that I can talk about those stories as well. And not all the stories are going to be as heavy in terms of the content. So thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. And I will see you on the next one. Take care.